Hello everyone! This time we're going to be reviewing the new characters coming. I'm also obviously going to be doing Walhart, as the thumbnail probably gave away, and give my thoughts on them, and yeah, basically as usual. Let's start with Walhart, because this one is, well, let's just put it this way, he's a bit more interesting than the other ones, since the other ones we already know more or less what they can do. Walhart. A lot of people wanted him to have DC, and honestly, after seeing his stat line, I was expecting his weapon to be DC. I was extremely disappointed on the character. I was like, man, DC with 16 res don't mean shit. It's literally about as tanky as a Xander, if not worse. Why? Like, there's no point. Oh, but bows. Whatever. Like, to me that felt kind of pointless, honestly. Then I've been told it's not DC. And I was like, wait, what? And I ended up checking, and yeah, it turns out Wolfberg is not DC, and holy shit is it a good weapon. Because if it was DC, it would literally be a worse Frederick. I wish I was joking, but Frederick actually has pretty much the same bulk, if not slightly better, and with attack plus he has also more attack than Walhart. And Walhart has like 2 more speed and like 5 more res if he's res minus. It's like, wow, the irrelevant stats are basically what Walhart beats Frederick in. So if he had DC, it honestly doesn't do much for him to a point where you're just better off running Brave Axe, right? Like Brave Axe, or I guess maybe Slaying Axe, but even then, those are 2 kits. Frederick just outclasses outright Walhart in. Slaying Axe, you should just go speed plus on Frederick, and then he ends up having 2 more speed than Walhart because it's a super boon. Oh, you go Brave Axe? Well, you have 1 more attack with Frederick, and in both cases, Frederick just has more availability in general. So it's like, yikes. The only thing he would have been good for if he had DC as a weapon is a free-to-play unit for some maps, essentially. Kind of like how people use Xander in Camus nowadays. Though Camus actually still has some use purely because he has a good speed stat, which Walhart doesn't even have, so yikes. So instead we've got Wolfberg here, which gives him an extra 3 def, on top of giving him +4 to every stats, regardless if it's enemy or player phase, as long as not enough people are around him. This is ridiculous. You can't make him a stupidly strong tank. Let me just put it this way, right? He has 36 base def. Wolfberg makes that 39 at base already. Had 45 cavalry, that's 45 def. Had close def, that's 51 def. Had Wolfberg, that's 55 defense. Oh, and by the way, against dragons, that's also 32 res, which is not great, but not bad either. And with own cav on top of Wolfberg, sorry, that's 63 attack. The guy swings like a motherfucker. Like, it's ridiculous how hard he hits. And on top of that, even then, you can just build on his speed because of this weapon as well. Wolfberg makes it 31, with own cav that's 37. Oh, and all the stats I've said were with close def. So, had Fury and a speed +3 seal, that's 43 speed. You could even go life and def, honestly. He has so much def he can actually spare it. So you can actually make him hit 45 speed? This is ridiculous. Actually really solid. Kinda silly though that we got Linus and then Walhart, like 2 axe units in a row, but considering how little axe units there is and how little competition as a result there is, this actually makes sense. In both Walhart and obviously Linus's case, they are actually really solid free-to-play units that are definitely worth 5-starring. In my case, I made Linus a 5-star, and I plan on doing the same with Walhart. This weapon is really solid, and there's a lot of ways to actually use it. Because it's basically working like Ephraim's weapon. And the best thing about Ephraim, and by extension Walhart, is they are horse units. You can actually just buff the shit out of them and then like move them away to bait. And still not be in a poor position on next turn. Granted, you're not baiting something that would actually kill you, but as a result, you have stuff, you can actually tank blows, right? You can actually get out of danger and then get back the buff if needed on the following turn, which is absolutely insanely useful. It doesn't exactly need desperation either. Honestly, you could almost run Brash Assault of all things and still do well. In fact, he would probably do amazingly with it because he would have pretty much the speed needed to break stuff like Warrior Fighter. Some low speed characters with Axe Breaker, he could actually break that as well. It's actually kind of insane how much potential this guy has. Chill Def is also a very solid skill for Father. He requires to be 5-star for it, which that's not exactly ideal, but I mean, it's Chill Def. The only other character that has the skill is BK Crom, and I don't expect him to get demoted anytime soon, even if they clearly have not 5-star demotion in mind yet, sadly. So, yeah. That's actually really good. Honestly, definitely a unit you should 5-star. There's really not many characters you can compare him to. 2 units I can actually compare him to are Too Quick, whereas this guy is more like I hit hard and I'm slow somewhat, but I can actually tank a fuckload. And in the tanking department, he can completely blow Groovmark and Spring Alphonse out of the water. Even in the res department, as stupid as this sounds. Purely because you kind of want to build on either his def or his attack, or both. Raising attack def is an amazing option as a result. Not so much his speed. His speed can definitely be useful, but it's definitely not the main focus, in my opinion. Now, comparison. Like I said, not many people worth comparing him to. Like I said, Frederick, if you don't consider the weapon, can completely blow him out of the water. Attack plus res minus, he has 2 more HP, 1 more attack, 2 less speed, which don't matter, same def, and like 5 less res, which again, don't matter. Merges can even fix that anyway if anything happens. So, yeah, stat-wise, he's definitely not that great. But like I said, his legendary weapon gives him so much mileage, it's actually ridiculous. Because as a result, you have to basically get 4 extra points in every stats, because you'll most likely use the weapon. It's so easy to use, it's so easy to abuse, so I see no reason why you wouldn't, right? And it's a 16-might weapon on top of it. So because he can actually use the weapon, that means he outright outclass Frederick as a result, which means he also has 4 more def. The res difference becomes 9 if Frederick is res minus, which is obviously the best bane he has. There's also a difference of 6 speed, which is kind of insane as well. But more importantly, a difference of, it really depends on the weapon, but I'm just going to consider like 2 extra might, because usually the weapon Frederick runs are 14 might. If they are not 14 might, they are 8 might because Brave Axe. So 2 more might as a result, and on top of that, the 4 might from the weapon itself. That's a solid 8 point over, and even with attack plus, that's still 5 more attack than Frederick. So yeah, actually insane. He actually carved himself a niche, which is nice, because I was looking at the stat and I was kind of disappointed. Glad to see I was wrong though. Now, moving on to the banner characters, Sumiya. I've also added rates, as you can see here. I know it's a bit tacked on. I'm not too sure where to place those rates, so it looks proper. But I figured it's actually worth mentioning. Blue and reds are absolutely atrocious to summon on nowadays. Like, I knew the rates were lower to some extent, but see, the big difference here is, now you might be wondering what's the question mark, right? The question mark is the chance of getting a pity breaker. Yikes. I wish I was wrong, but no, those numbers are right. Those are calculated by a friend that goes by the name of Mage of Mind that I met on Discord. His calculation have been extremely accurate for the most part, so I've been using these. I'll be using these from now on as well. So yeah, there's a color distribution for the blue orbs of like 26 to 33%, which, alright, we all knew it was like the second highest. On the not so happy side, while Sumiya has a rate of 2.85%, there's also almost the same rate for a pity breaker. Yikes. I actually did not know that until he showed me the rate, so this is about as new to me as it is to you, so that's rough. If you really like Sumiya, I'm sorry, it's really hard to pull her. Also, if we're talking about her kit, I'm also sorry here. She is not that great. Her kit is fantastic though. Like, I really hope she gets demoted, because everything in there can be used. It's actually insane. Reprisal Lance, I mean, it's not a slaying lance, obviously, but it's still a decent lance in some situations. Definitely could be used by some tanks. Or in some cases, characters like Gwendolyn could definitely use it as well, since, especially in high tier arena. In high tier arena, slaying is not as great unless you're running Vengeful Fighter and you're consistently getting doubled, because you won't proc A4 consistently enough. Whereas Reprisal Lance is just a straight up 6 extra damage every time, right? So as a result, it's not bad. It's consistent extra damage, and A4 doesn't really improve your damage well enough in a certain matchup, so an extra 6 attack is definitely welcomed. Reposition, obviously, if she gets demoted, is absolutely fantastic. We need more of that in the pool. Close Def is also fantastic. Even if it's slugged behind 5-star, which it might not because of attack def link, I would definitely be happy for that, because I have a +1 Sigurd, and I have 2 copies of Sigurd, 2 of which were off banner, so that's great. But I would like to merge them. But Close Def is such a good skill, I kind of want to keep it for certain other characters I want to use, so it's like, please, I kind of want to have Close Def in the pool so I can merge Sigurd. Attack Def Link is, well, you all know how I feel about Link skills. I feel like they're extremely limiting and kind of pointless in the higher tier of Arena, purely because it requires you to have a movement skill, which scores less than a double rally by quite a bit. By quite a bit, I mean, it's a full SP bin over the other one, and in fact it can almost be 2, depending on what you're running on the unit, so it's hard to just say like, oh yeah, I'll run Reposition and Attack Def Link. It's kind of iffy. On the bright side though, characters like Erica can absolutely abuse the shit out of it. Buffing Attack and Def by 6 for herself, and then a unit, and therefore with Siglinde an extra other 6 Attack and Def, is insane. Basically just makes her able to almost hit 60 attack unmerged. It's actually insane. And then she also becomes extremely bulky on top of it, so it's really solid on her. Other characters that can really use them, that's kind of debatable. Erika is definitely the best user of it, obviously, but I don't feel like Attack Def Link is that fantastic on other units. It's nice, it's niche, but it's nothing absolutely like amazing. I honestly hope this banner will set back a old precedent how there was always 2 units staying at 5-star, and then there was 2 units going down to 4-star on 4-man banners. I'm actually really hoping to see 2 units dropping on this banner. I feel like it's just right. There's 4 units. 2 of them are obviously staying at 5-star because they actually bring really good stuff to the table, or at least something unique in one of them's case. And well, Sumiya doesn't bring much to the table. Let's switch to the comparison. Another thing I want to point out before I go in this: everything that she has is inheritable. So outside of having a decent base kit, there's really nothing she has like that she can have as a niche overall, outside of one thing, which is basically the fact that she can get a rest super boon, which is good for one big reason. It basically means you can actually run double close def and hit 41 def and res, which is pretty nice, honestly. It's basically our one niche to be a enemy phase fighter, even though she has a lot of points wasted in speed as a result, if that's what you're going for, which is kind of a shame, honestly. Something someone also pointed out is it's the first time we have a unit that can basically have a stance spectrum, for lack of a better term. You can get 6 attack fierce stance, obviously from the weapon. Close def seal, that's 6 def and 6 res, or distant def, regardless, it's essentially the same. And then darting stance as our A slot. Should you do that? Fuck no, but it's noteworthy, I guess. Maybe other units could actually use it, though frankly, darting stance is actually extremely poor. I'm glad that it's not the skill that Shigure gets at 4-star, and it's Ward Flyer instead, because Ward Flyer you can actually do stuff with it. Now, going into this, we can definitely tell she has the lowest attack of all of them. She actually power creeps, I believe, every lance in speed, which is kind of ironic because Summer Cordelia set a new precedent on spears, becoming the fastest lance unit at 38, and then literally, what, 2 banners later, it's already power crept. By 1 point, obviously, which is not much, but oh well. Now, the problem with that kind of stat spread, though, is that, alright, Shigure, you can run Heavy Blade still, you just need to get attack plus, right? It's no problem. But Sumiya, I'm sorry, her attack is just too low for that. And I can already tell what a few people will say, referring to this. You could use Flashing Blade. Flashing Blade is not a seal you can use on flyers. Yeah, so specials are out of the window unless you run like low ones, like low count ones. I don't see them really working out, purely because 44 attack with Slaying Lance is, I don't want to say abysmal, but definitely not great. I know it basically goes to like 47 with Fury, but that's still pretty low, and even with 2 goes, that's still low, unless she's attack plus, and having to rely on 2 gold support on top of attack plus to actually proc Heavy Blade is honestly not great. And even then, like, say you go speed plus on Shigure and you go attack plus on Sumiya, Shigure literally has a better offensive stats spread, no matter how you look at it. And okay, but what if you go speed plus on Sumiya? It's not great. Because then she hits like a wet noodle. It's great that you're quick, that you double a lot, but if at the end of the day you don't do much damage, it's pointless. And she doesn't even bring one important thing that Shigure did at least have over Cordelia, which was more BST. And she does not have a pref weapon. If she had a preferential weapon, on the bright side, it would mean she could actually outscore Shigure, but since she doesn't, that means she scores the same. Yes, I am aware she has a super boon, which means her highest BST is 163, while Shigure's is 162, but that means nothing. Unless she would somehow bump to 165 BST, it doesn't change scoring whatsoever. So, yeah, it's disappointing, to say the least. So yeah, Sumiya, definitely not a horrible unit, but Shigure completely outclasses her. Cordelia is just more versatile. If I'm being completely honest, the best out of those three units is still Cordelia. The fact that she has less bulk overall than Shigure and Sumiya is not exactly something that matters all that much in the end. Because you will rely on desperation. You have enough bulk to take at least one hit, which is all that is required. Then you hit desperation, then you can proc stuff like Heavy Blade, Gale Force, Heavy Blade, I don't know, Draconic Aura. There's a lot of things you can do with this, because you can actually run Heavy Blade consistently. Shigure can run Heavy Blade, but it's less consistent than Cordelia, purely because a bit less attack, obviously. Obviously, I feel like Sumiya's best set is probably a Fire Sweep Lance set, unless you, as I said, double close defense her, so she at least hits like a lot of attack, not a lot of attack, but a lot of defense and res, and can actually abuse her spear to actually hit decent amount of attack. Not amazing, mind you, but it's at least decent. And at the very least, as weird as this sounds, you can actually make her an enemy face Heavy Blade user, if not, which I feel like is kind of a horrible choice, but it's an option all the same. So yeah, I honestly feel like she should be demoted. She would at least bring good fodder to the table, which is definitely welcomed. But as is, Libra is the obvious one that's going to get demoted, and honestly, even then, it's kind of funny because Libra actually brings more to the table due to his stat line than Sumiya does, and it feels like they gave her so many good skills just so they could make her 5-star exclusive, despite the fact that she's not that amazing. It's a shame, honestly. Sumiya is honestly, I'd say, kind of a fan favorite when it comes down to characters, and from Awakening, and honestly, I kind of understand that. It's basically Awakening's Felicia, it's for lack of a better term, but oh well. Enough of this, let's move on to Libra, of all people. Look at that kit, doesn't that scream demotion? Green Orbs having 18% spawn rate is no surprise, honestly. And decent amount of chance of getting enough banner, but at least it's not nearly as close as Sumiya, so there's that. I did get pity fisted myself, but for those who are curious and actually saw my summon session, I did pull Libra. I pulled Libra literally 2 summons after the video, essentially. So that was fun. I think his IVs were kind of lackluster, like something like res minus HP plus, but oh well, who cares? I'm just glad I actually got him. And it didn't take forever. Here's hoping the legendary banner treats me well as well. A guy can hope, right? But yeah, so for that 17% spawn rate, 3.03% chance of actually getting pity fisted. That's kind of a shame, but oh well. Let's talk about this kid. This kid is not good. Focusing a lot on healing, it seems, and those are not things a lot of people like to do. When people tend to pair a healing special with a Wood Out, it tends to be at the very least Soul, not Noontime. But enough ragging on this. This is essentially a Wood Out that's going to be, for Axes, that's going to be in the pool, which is definitely amazing to begin with. But on a unit that's most likely going to get demoted. This is actually definitely welcome. People will actually not fodder Spring Alphonse anymore because that's a fucking waste of resources. Anyway, which is a good thing, honestly. Spring Alphonse is absolutely insane. If it wasn't for now Walhart, I'd say Spring Alphonse is quite literally the best green cav at the moment. But Walhart makes that a bit more less obvious, for lack of a better term. So let's move on to comparison. Libra's stats line is weird. What a little shame though is that he has 164 base BST and he does not have a single super moon. That is such a shame. Because if he did, you would actually be scoring just as much as a Drog with this guy. And Drug is an armored unit. So, yeah. Very weird stat line, very reminiscent of Camilla, as in it's really balanced. That's why Camilla's here. A lot of people have been saying he's basically a better Camilla, but frankly, if we're talking stat line wise, no. I'd say Camilla actually has a better stat line purely because of her axe. Her axe increases her attack and speed by 4, and because it's a 16 might beat stick instead of 14 might, which is what good old Libra would be running, it's another 2 might, so that means she has 1 more attack and 2 more speed from the get-go, purely because of her axe. Now if we're talking about team comp outside of a full flyer team, or tactic horse flyer team, alright, yes, he is in fact better. And yes, I do know you can refine whatever weapon he would be using to actually decrease the difference between the two, but at best they are about equal. Because Camilla is better def and res, a bit less HP, overall better offense due to her axe and more buffing capability if you want it, but you can also refine it for extra stats on top of what she already has. So it's frankly around the same. The thing is though that Camilla's axe can be used in a variety of ways, which obviously a Libra can do. Wow, I had a blank there. So, outside of that though, he is absolutely amazing. And ironically, the closest thing I could find of him is literally Hawkeye. He's basically Hawkeye without the big problem Hawkeye has, because they basically have about the same def and res. Yes, Hawkeye is a bit more HP, but that doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but the matchup where HP matters the most is a red unit. So, yeah, it's basically a unit you wouldn't fight anyway, so, like, seriously, who would tank a fucking Zelgus with Hawkeye? I don't think that's a good idea. So, yeah, alright. Better stat line. What else? Well, there's really not much to say about him. He's most likely get demoted, which I know I've been saying a lot, but the very, very good thing about this is going to be the first time a grain unit will be demoted since Bowie. Bowie, for fuck's sake! Jesus Christ. Also, you will have a double spur, maybe fully unlocked at 4-star, which is not bad. It's definitely good for scoring. Attack res is actually not too bad overall, honestly. So, yeah. Pretty solid unit overall. Actually has a fairly unique stat line overall, so you can actually definitely use him. And he's one of those units that require merge to actually really shine because he's so balanced. Or specific Ivy spread, but end up becoming extremely versatile the more merge you have. That's how Camilla is, by the way, if you're curious. Camilla, like, baseline Camilla is... like, she's actually struggling so hard before Camilla's axe was introduced anyway. She was extremely struggling in so many matchups because she just didn't have enough of literally anything. Camilla's axe fixed that for the most part now, but even then, if you merge her up, she has so many options she can use. She can use Slaying Axe. Now she can use also the Wadao Axe. She can use Camilla's axe. She can use probably Fire Sweep Axe after all, like later down the line. Like, she's actually surprisingly good. She has a lot of bulk, so you can actually use her as a baiting unit. You can also use her as an aggressive unit, a mixed phase unit. There's really like a lot of things you can do, and everything I just said about Camilla applies to Libra for the most part. So, yeah, holy shit. Libra is going to be amazing if you actually decide to 5-star plus 10 the guy. There's a lot of things you can do with him. If he does drop, which is very likely. So, he most likely will be a merge project for a lot of people. Personally, it won't be for me because I already have a Sheena that is basically plus 5. She's plus 2 right now, but I have 3 copies to 5-star, so on next stream most likely, which I guess I should probably put in the description below as well, since so many new people have been subscribing recently, which, by the way, thanks for the 400 subs. I'm surprised I even have this many people who watch my content where I just become verbal diarrhea for 20 to an hour. 20 minutes to an hour. But yeah, let's move on. It's... oh my god. I wish I didn't take this long. Mary Bell. Oh my god, this is actually kind of hype. As much as I hate that word, it's kind of hype to see her in the game, and I don't even like her, but I like her more for the fact that she has Staff Valerie and Dazzling Staff. Dazzling Staff, it was well overdue to be in the pool. And by the way, apparently if she were to be demoted, not happening by the way, Dazzling Staff would be available at 4-star. So maybe in 2 years, if she ever gets demoted because she's been power creep to shit, which again, not happening, if she does get power creep to shit, Dazzling Staff might become a 4-star skill. Who knows what the future will hold. Martyr is a very strange skill to have on her, though. I honestly don't understand what they're doing here. Martyr is a skill for units that have actual bulk, right? Because then you take damage, you heal more as a result. That's cool. Why in God's name is it on a unit with 16 def is beyond me. I have no... I don't understand this. Like, oh yeah, I can totally tank a thing with my 50 physical bulk. And, oh wait, I'm def minus, that's 46 because that's a super bane. It's like, what? What do you hope to gain here? Like, honestly, that's definitely needing to go unless you run some very weird setup on Maribel. I'd say probably want to run Recover because she literally has the highest attack out of any healer. I think there is Jenny that ties her, but that's about it. And unlike Jenny, she has a good speed stats, so yeah, Recover is definitely the best option here. Maybe Physics would also be a decent choice, though. Trilemma is a... I'd say a depressing one, which, by the way, we already know that the next Tactic Drills is going to have a Maribel in it, or whatever healer they choose, because Trilemma is part of the title. So that's gonna be fun. It can be a pretty cool weapon, but it can also backfire on you, which I don't like that kind of thing. Especially like the higher you go in Arena, you tend to have units that deals with stuff that they're actually weak against anyway. Like my Ira deals with Effie. Would I want to basically be like, oh, I need to kill something with Maribel, right? And then I get hit. And then it's like, well, or rather, then the enemy gets hit by it, and then I can't kill it because TA gets in the way. Or a unit around it gets TA as a result, and then I can't tank it anymore. It's honestly bad, but at the same time it can be really solid. Like, oh look, it's say Lecter, and he has a lot of death. Now I can actually one-shot him because of TA. It's like, I don't know. It feels like it can be both good, but at the same time horrible. A lot of time though, you already kill stuff that you have TA against, so why the fuck bother? Not TA, but combat triangle advantage against, like, you already don't struggle, so why bother? Like, the only unit that come to mind this weapon could be really useful in dealing with are Zelgus and Bunfire LA Hector, because then you can actually like reverse combat triangle to a point where their special don't do nearly as much as they could do. So yeah. On the bright side though, about the same rate of orbs for colorless, and actually 2.88% summon rate with only 1.796 pity breaking rate. That is actually not bad, and that's honestly, like, I don't understand people who consider colorless to be colorless hell. It's actually like having a lot of really amazing fodder nowadays. But on top of it, getting pity breaking? What? Pity broke is actually not that bad here. There is only 12 units in the colorless pool that is in the 5-star pool, and quite a few of them are actually solid. Maribel is going to be in one of those places. Jenny at least is Raffle's staff. I guess units like Legolt are not too fun because they're better off at 4-star. Soph is a really good dagger, but again, you can get him at 4-star. But outside of those two that comes to mind, there's also Ylissean that comes with Live to Serve. No other character that gets directly from the pool has it at 3, so that's already nice, though it's a seal now. There's also Jafar that could work as a Pain Plus user, essentially. Then there's a lot of bow unit. There's Takumi with close defense, which is actually not close defense, close counter. I keep mixing the two. Why? Which is pretty solid, obviously. Like, there's a lot of options you can do. You can have that are actually not bad to get pity broke by. I would love to get pity broken by a Jenny at the very least if I get pity broke again. But we all know how that's going. Anyway, moving on to comparison. Now you might be wondering why it's at the left. I'm going to be showing my Ylissean, like the set I have on my own Ylissean after this, to explain the point. Maribel is outright destroying Ylissean when it comes down to offense. It's not even a contest. there's just way too much difference. 3 attack and 1 speed basically means if you have an attack plus Elise, you're still worse than a neutral Maribel, which is holy shit. Like, I'm surprised we actually got a really solid healer this time around when it comes down to offense at the very least. Nana was a sad case, honestly. I really like Nana, so her stat spread made me sad. I really wish Maribel and Nana would just switch places when it comes down to stats and skills, but oh well. Oh well. She is a fantastic offensive user, and yes, her bulk is actually kind of atrocious, but she does come with Dazzling Staff. So if you run Dazzling on top of Wrathful, and then you can run on top of that Lift to serve as a seal, so you can actually heal up if required, but at the same time, if you take a hit, yikes, let's avoid those. It's actually pretty solid. The problem though is if you're talking about multiple fights in a row and you don't want to run Dazzling Staff for a reason or another because you want to run a different B slot, well, Elise is completely better. In fact, let me just show you what my Elise is like in Horse Emblem. Yep, there is no Tempest Trial buff here, by the way. This is just purely horse buffs and Ephraim support. Because Ephraim is her support, not support, but her ally support. And at the same time, Fire Blessing is amazing for her because her death is so low, it actually fixes a good deal of it. My Elise, by the way, is death minus, so say she was res minus, I would actually be even better off. It's kind of ridiculous how good this is. So yeah, like honestly, if she was res minus, which is honestly the best bane she can have, that would basically make my def 38 and my res 33 here. I could remove the seal for HP res too. So it would go down to 35, 33, and then with the seal that would go back up to 35, 35 overall. But the difference is, while I have basically the same bulk, def res wise, I would have 43 health. Yeah. Doesn't that feel weird? A 43 HP Elise? Without the fire season, obviously, I go down 3 points in def and 3 points in, actually 4 points in def and 3 points in res, 3 points in HP. Oof, my brain. So yeah, Elise can be built to be a multi-bulk unit as a whole, better than Maribel can be, to the point where I honestly do not give a shit. I could actually run Martyr on Elise, unlike obviously Maribel. So yeah, recover is still an incredibly amazing option though. I believe I heal for 35 HP with Elise here. And I could actually heal more with Maribel, so yeah. Honestly, I don't want to say Elise is completely power crept, but she is more or less, like, if you want pure offense, Elise is not the best anymore, obviously. It's Maribel that is the best. Now, if you want to talk about multi-phase, Elise can definitely hold her own. In fact, she can outright outclass Maribel in that role. Yes, Dazzling Staff is nice and all, but that only works on initiation. So, yeah. Can you imagine if it worked also on enemy phase? You attack with the unit, but it literally does nothing. But yeah, if anything, that's Staff Valor, which is literally the Valor that was the most needed out of all the Valors. It's also Dazzling Staff in the pool, which is absolutely amazing. I'm actually kind of debating summoning more for her, but at the same time, I need the Legendary Hero. I actually need the Legendary Hero. So, yikes. Yikes. Because I don't want to end up missing a unit, especially a legendary one. So that's rough, but oh well. Hopefully I can somehow pull the legendary quickly, then go for Maribel and just pull her in almost immediately. That'd be cool. Or Jenny. Jenny would be weird though. But yeah. That's about all I have to say about those two. Let's move on to Olivia. Boy oh boy, doesn't those rate look delicious? 2.53% rate for the unit and 4.21% chance for pity breaking. Wow, that is rancid for lack of a better term. This is actually disgusting. No wonder I got 2 pity breakers before I got Olivia. Yikes. So, she comes with chill speed yet again. This is kind of pointless in my opinion. We already have a unit with chill speed in the red pool, but I mean, oh well, right? More power to you. It's useful for her, I guess, if you want her to be a support role and you do not want to have Wings of Mercy on her. Personally, I still prefer Wings of Mercy on my dancers, but really it's subjective. It really comes down to what you yourself would like. Guidance is also a fantastic skill, especially on a support unit. Chaz actually did make a good point when I was talking to him and how I felt about guidance, and I was like, it's already a seal. You don't need 2 guidance on the team. Guidance as a C slot has more utility in the sense that the C slot is more safe to waste than a seal slot, especially on certain unit like Mer, Summer Younger, Young Tiki. Both of them kind of want to have IOD Shield as their seal, so Guidance is way better as a C slot for them. That doesn't mean Guidance is that amazing in my opinion. It still already is a seal. It's only like on those 2 particular cases I feel like it's really solid. Or literally any character that has a lot of death. If you're not doing IT Arena, so like characters like Tsubaki can use it, character like Michaelis can use it, Minerva can use it, to some extent Ines can use it. You get the idea. It's still a pretty solid C slot for her. So yeah, alright. Bracing Stance. Now, just as well as Bracing Blow was fucking trash on good old Jacob, of all things. Bracing Stance is actually an amazing skill. Now, is it that great on Olivia? That depends on what your actual IVs are, in my opinion. Res Plus with this is actually really solid. You hit 30 def and 31 res when getting attacked. That is actually pretty extensive. You can also get extra buff due to Fortified Flyer that can go up to 36 def, 37 res, which is the whole reason why I was so happy when I got HP minus res plus Olivia. It's actually really amazing on her due to flyer buffs. And honestly, you don't really need attack and speed as a dancer. Olivia does just fine without them. Especially with a 16 might beat stick. Dance is a given and Scold. Well, I'm going to point this out already. A lot of people are like, ooh boy, now she's the best dancer ever. She power crept Pie Azura. And it's like, Pie Azura literally never was the best dancer, so yeah. A lot of people seem to put way too much, what's the word? They put way too much faith, I guess, in Aurora. Aurora is not a bad weapon by any stretch. It's not bad that you literally buff every stat by 3, it's actually really good, but it's mostly solid to grind units, not so much to grind Not so much to like do stuff like arena or PvE content. The reason why I say this is because units that uses those buff most are usually blade tomes, right? Would you like to be able to kill 2 units in a row because you're buffing attack and speed due to own attack and then own speed seal? Or would you like to move, dance, and then you can kill a unit? Because you wouldn't kill one otherwise due to the fact that you don't have the buff before you get danced. I think you get the point. It's not a bad thing, but it's mostly for units that are going to bait on enemy phase. If that's not the case, then I'm sorry, it's just not that great. Blade Tomes can use it, but like I said, own attack and own speed, you can combo those pretty easily. They are cheap to make. The seal are a thing for both own attack and own speed, so you can just get own speed the fodder or own attack the fodder, combo the 2 together and actually abuse it. So it's kind of and also I also want to point out, unless you're going to use her as strictly as a guidance unit, if you're using her as in a flyer team setup, it's actually even more atrocious to some extent. I say to some extent because you can actually just run goads on a flyer team, so it's not that bad, right? You can actually like run goads, and then on top of it you have extra buff, so you don't need the extra buff that much, but it can help here and there. You don't require them as much as with blade tomes, so that's not bad. However, if your team is really like focusing on own flyers and 45 flyers because you have blade tomes in them, it's literally a terrible idea to use her. New Year Zura is actually better in that scenario because she comes with own flyers. The reason why I say it's terrible is because you're already buffing every stat because of own flyers and 45 flyers. So having a buffing tool is pointless, almost. There are some situations it's going to help you, obviously, but more often than not, it's going to be pointless. Azura on the bright side is on an infantry scenario most of the time, or mixed scenarios, so yeah, tactics are a thing, but outside of tactics, there's not that many means to buff stats. Now, unless Shiro ever gets demoted, which honestly he should, because he's a worse Lucas, you don't have Def Tactic, and Speed Tactic is on a legendary, so rip that. Rip the dream. So, yeah. Like I said, not a bad weapon, just not that great either. If you're wondering who's the best dancer, in my opinion, that still is Base Olivia. Base Olivia actually has stupidly good bulk, and also, ironically, unlike the other 2 red unit, let's switch to comparison, she actually hits 150 BST at base! Who would have thunk? I do want to point out though, it's kind of insane how much Akira's improved his style in between Base Olivia and the new Olivia. Yes, it's the same artist. Can you believe it? He actually really improved a lot when it comes down to drawing faces, which is honestly amazing. Obviously, Yoshiko is still the best out of the 2 artists here. Lene is absolutely gorgeous, but still, there is such a wide margin of improvement between the 2. It's kind of insane. There is so much more details on the new Olivia compared to the old one. It's ridiculous. Now, I say that, but what the fuck happened to your legs? How can you even stand like this without breaking your kneecaps? But, oh well, I mean, it can't be perfect, can it? So, stat-wise now, alright. She has 2 more attack and 1 more speed than base Olivia. So they decided to make her a bit more aggressive, and I feel like that's a waste of time, honestly. The thing that made Olivia so good, and still so good, is the fact that she has this stupid amount of bulk. Seriously, 27-26 on a Dancer is insane. My Olivia is 5-star plus 10, right? And I use Fury on her, right? My Olivia hits 44 defense on enemy face on top of 37 res. You heard that right. 44 defense. Not even buffed. If I was actually buffing on top of this, I would have 50 defense. 50 defense and 43 res. And I can just run double tactic pretty easily. Yeah, Olivia is just disgusting when it comes down to bulk. It's actually insane. And unlike most units, Safeguard is actually really good on her because she doesn't really need the damage. You will most likely run Aether for points anyway if you do run her. So specials are not exactly a focus on her. It's mostly like you're going to use her as a support mostly, and sometimes she will have to take hits. And the fact that she is so bulky, especially with Death Tactic, is absolutely gross. I've made her tank Black Luna, like literally Boat Fighter Zelgis did 2x2 on her. And then procced Black Luna on her ass and she tanked it. I think that says enough. And the new Olivia can still do that to some extent. She only has 1 less death and only 3 less res. And if she goes res plus, the res gap is only 2. I believe I went Def plus HP minus on my Olivia, so I could actually like get the refine for res on Safeguard, which means I had 30-30 essentially. And then with merges, that's 34-34, and then with Fury, 37-37. Which is absolutely stupid. In Olivia's case, the other Olivia, it's a bit easier to buff Death, so at least there's that if you're using her in a flyer team. So, alright, if you buff her in a flyer team, and you give her, I would say Safeguard, but that really depends on your team setup, doesn't it? If you already have 2 own flyers and 2 fortify, obviously Safeguard is probably your best bet. Her legendary weapon is only good for scoring better in arena, essentially. Nothing else. Which actually, now that I realize this, I kind of want to see what PA Azura has in BST, because she might, this Olivia might be the new best scoring dancer of the game. So let me check here. Okay, no. Azura would actually be able to equal her if she gets her super boon. But how convenient is the super boon? Let's see this. She needs HP plus in order to equal Olivia in terms of score. Yikes. Okay, so Olivia has better stats, better utility, and overall better super boons. Res super boon is actually really good on Olivia. And HP super boon on Azura is absolutely downright disgusting. So yeah, actually really solid stat spread. If you're comparing her to Lene, I'd say kinda depends. It really depends. It comes down to IVs. Though I will say Lene tends to want to have Death plus, HP minus. Kinda like how Olivia wants to have Res plus, HP minus, because you don't want to destroy her attack and speed. And HP doesn't matter too much because you'll have so much bulk if you do build around bulk, that you'll be able to deal with multiple fights. And HP loses value the more fights you're able to tank. So the fact that both Lene, Olivia, obviously, and actually no, Olivia and the new Olivia can actually hit stupid amounts of bulk means it doesn't exactly matter that you go HP minus. And even in Lene's case, she comes with Safeguard, 27 base def, that's already 34 def. Add Fury to that, that's 37. If you go def plus, which is honestly what you should be doing. Now, yeah, you'd probably go def plus 27, 28, then Fury 30, 30, 31. Then Safeguard, that's 38, 31. If you refine it to res, that's 38, 38, 35. She is still a bit less bulky overall, but yeah, it's still pretty solid. It's still at a point where HP minus is worth going for, in my opinion. Outside of maybe the Zelgus matchup, obviously. But yeah, it's just they're all really solid. All of them are basically the top 3 dancers, in my opinion. Olivia, the base Olivia is the clear best, and the second best depends on your team comp, in my opinion. The new Olivia definitely has more option because of her weapon, and Safeguard is inerritable anyway, so there's that. But at the same time, Lene has a slightly more well-spread stat spread. Though, then again, it's like 27-28 versus 28-27, so it's kind of close. The new Olivia is better offensively, so I guess no. I guess it's kind of safe to say base Olivia, then the new Olivia, then Lene in terms of utility. Though Lene is still the 3rd best dancer, as insane as this is. Like I said, all of them are amazing, and more dancers is always good. Unless you have at least 7, there's no situation where having more dancer is harmful because of how Arena Assault is. And actually having a 3rd dancer added to the... actually no, that's our what? Is that our 4th dancer added to the pool? Yeah, that's our 4th dancer added to the pool, isn't it? It's definitely welcome. We need more in the pool, less in seasonals. So yeah, overall she's a pretty solid unit. She can also definitely fight pretty solidly. It all comes down to essentially, do you want to deal with red hell, for lack of a better term, because yikes, those raids are pretty horrible to deal with. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I've been talking way too much about this. This video took me 5 hours to make, plus another hour to record, so yeah, as usual, Discord will be in the description. So will be my Twitch. I stream every Wednesdays, for those who are actually curious. Wednesdays, 10 AM S time. EST time, I guess would be better. And yeah, that's about it. I'll see you guys either in the comment or obviously on Discord. Have a good one.